Welcome to the Dynasty Football Key. Hey, I've got a live for you guys. Go ahead and like and subscribe. Wanted to just see what's going on with the NFL free agency here. We've got a lot of movement going on, and let's see if we can tap in, get some a little bit of a beat of what's going on here, what might happen, and also wanted to go through my top 72 rookies and just see what some of the changes have come with the combine and even what some of the implications of different switches from teams for players in the free agency might have on the rookie class as well. Let's go ahead and look over here. So we've got, I know it says 2022 here, but this is actually for 2024. This is on CBSSports.com. Kirk Cousins, one of the biggest free agent quarterbacks available. And right now we're hearing that Atlanta is favored to land Kirk Cousins. I think Justin Fields was the second highest favorite quarterback that might end up with the Falcons. But with Kirk Cousins being a free agent, it might be a little bit easier. Whereas with the Bears, they'd have to make a trade to send over Justin Fields. I think Kirk Cousins is in a great situation with the Vikings, but it could just be a situation where the Vikings need to pay Justin Jefferson and might not have enough cap space to also pay Kirk Cousins. Lots of other big names here. A lot of these are on defense, so I will jump through here. We've already had T. Higgins sign with the Bengals and Mike Evans re-sign with the Buccaneers, as well as Pittman. Baker Mayfield is another big quarterback signing. We'll see if they get that deal done to have him return to the Buccaneers. I think it makes sense for him to go back. He played really well, and they have a quarterback need. If they don't re-sign him, I'm not sure what direction they're going to go. They do have a bit of a higher draft pick, so it would be tough if they were to just, not re-sign a quarterback and then have to figure it out from there. So let's okay, we got Saquon Barkley. He's going to be on the thumbnail. Uh really excited to see where Barkley lands. Anywhere he goes, he could be an absolute difference maker for a team. I would think the NFC East team like the Dallas Cowboys might be interested. We've seen a lot of that happen where Dan Quinn goes over to the Washington Commanders and takes all of those players in division over to that team, and a lot more than we would think as far as having in division rivals. Switch teams. There's not that loyalty. It's just who's going to pay the most, and they'll go over there. Especially for the running backs, they'll sign wherever someone's willing to take care of them. And let's see. So Calvin Ridley, it doesn't look like they're going to be re-signing him. So I would look for him to be on the move. There are definitely a lot of teams that are wide receiver needed. There's enough wide receivers in this draft to where you could definitely get one, but maybe you want to get an established veteran, likely a win now team. You could see the Kansas City Chiefs take on a Calvin Ridley. They've taken shots on a Juju Smith-Schuster. They've taken shots on other guys where maybe you didn't think they would have anything left in the tank, but if you pair them up with an elite quarterback, you might actually get some good results there. And let's see if we keep going through. We've got Josh Jacobs. Again, so many different landing spots for these running backs. And with the rookie draft class maybe being not as deep as we might like, you could absolutely see Josh Jacobs signed for, right now I'm seeing $30 million. Some reports are out that that's what he's looking for. Maybe that's spread over 3 years, something like that. But yeah, you could definitely see Josh Jacobs, who's I believe still fairly young, in the 25 years old range, 26. So someone's going to take a chance on Josh Jacobs, and I think he's still got plenty left where he could go to a team and produce right away. So do not sleep on Josh Jacobs. A lot of these guys, from a fantasy perspective, I could absolutely see them go out there and sign, um, you know, sign somewhere and end up having maybe revitalization of that career, getting some good points. And for our fantasy teams, this could be even better situations that they go into, because Josh Jacobs didn't even have a quarterback really. So if he were to go somewhere, get a new quarterback, that could be really good for him. Let's keep going through and see who else. So Marquise Brown with the Cardinals. He's had a couple of years there. He's been productive and gotten a lot of targets pretty much everywhere he's gone. He has had some injury concerns, but this past season, it's really just Kyler Murray wasn't there. So we knew that the yardage was going to be a little bit lower, and he could go anywhere. This is definitely a type of speed receiver where many teams like the Buffalo Bills might want someone to stretch the field. Let's see where Marquise Brown goes. I know he's not going for a lot now. A lot of these free agents that we're talking about, these are all buy low candidates. Most of them are still young enough to where if now for the first time in their career they're getting to choose where they go, then I think they're going to pick somewhere that fits their skill set, and that could end up being a scenario where they get to thrive. I don't think Marquise Brown's going to sign up to just be a third option on a team somewhere. We keep going down here. A lot of defense, but one of the most outlier running backs we've ever seen, and Derrick Henry is here. This guy is a monster. He's been posting workout videos of him just killing it and still looks strong as ever. Would I love to see what he can do. So they do have the ages here, 30 years old. So definitely more of a 1 to 2 year window type of running back. We've seen so much good stuff from Derrick Henry that I just cannot hate on him at this point. Want to see where he ends up landing. I would think anywhere he goes, he's going to be good this season in 2024. Don't be afraid to take a shot on Derrick Henry. Let's see what he can do on a new team, and I think it's going to be great things. Tony Pollard, he got a shot as a number one this past season, and it didn't really work out, unfortunately. So I'm not really sure if he can thrive in that number one role, but reports are that Pollard wants to re-sign with the Dallas Cowboys, and I could see them drafting a running back and pairing those two together, let that rookie learn and take over in 2025, but have that two-headed monster in 2024. Curtis Samuel, he's a wide receiver where he's been good and productive. Not number one wide receiver productive, but he's a dual threat out of the backfield as well. People like to use him all over the places. Coaches really love his versatility. If he doesn't stay with the Washington Commanders, he could easily be picked up somewhere where they just need an extra body. I could see the Broncos adding someone like this, since they just traded away Jerry Jeudy. There's definitely, the Carolina Panthers, maybe they could do a reunion there. I doubt that. There's definitely some teams like, again, the Chiefs could pick him up for very cheap. He's kind of a hybrid of a lot of the players that they have brought in, where they can either stretch the field or they could be used to help in the run game. They're not going to have, the Chiefs won't have Jerick McKinnon anymore, maybe not Clyde Edwards-Helaire either. So although I know they're going to probably address the running back position, someone with the dual threat ability might help. I'll go down to Odell Beckham Jr. He's 31, the oldest player we've discussed so far. Last year it was considered a really big contract that he got, just based on coming off the injury. He definitely has a name brand appeal. I could see him trying to run it back with the Ravens. His market, I can't predict it at this point. just because there are enough other wide receivers that are younger that he may sign later in the offseason. Gabe Davis, a deep threat wide receiver. Many teams could use someone like him. We'll see where he ends up going. There was some inconsistencies, however, with the need of wide receiver, someone's going to pick him up. Hopefully, it is a type of team that can get him in as a wide receiver 3, because it seems like when he was asked to be wide receiver 2, it was just a little bit more inconsistent with some of the top corners pressing down on him, and really it was some games he would have 0 catches, and some games he would go off. So a little inconsistent here and there. He's been inconsistent with his production, but I would say with the Eagles, or just that Jalen Hurts was getting all of the reps, and at the goal line with the tush push. So if he goes almost anywhere else, he may be able to get some of that goal line work. He doesn't. So it may not be as automatic as we'd like to think. I just can't give up on the talent of DeAndre Swift. Tyler Boyd, this is somewhere where if he were not to resign with the Cincinnati Bengals, I could see them going after that Curtis Samuel type, or drafting a rookie wide receiver or tight end. He could easily play a wide receiver 3 role somewhere. And then let's keep going. Austin Eckler. This is someone who has that pass catching skill set. He could definitely end up on a team just as maybe a complimentary backfield mate. Kind of a rest. But with running backs, unless you're that Derrick Henry, it's a little bit tougher to trust later in the years, and so the NFL teams are going to have to make that evaluation. When the running backs are near age 30, what they want to do there. Darnell Mooney, he is, look, with him, the quarterback was known for not having a lot of high yardage games, and I'd like to see Darnell Mooney on a team with a pass first quarterback. Still, it's hard to imagine him as a wide receiver 1. He did have that opportunity once, and maybe he doesn't maybe doesn't ever get that again. But as wide receiver 3, on the Bengals or the Chiefs or something like that, he could absolutely thrive in a role like that. Ryan Tannehill, age 35, I think he'll end up getting signed somewhere, even if it's a prove-it deal. He's probably got 1 year left. They end up turning into that backup role, and that's totally fine. It happens, and then maybe there's an injury, and then we see us going to the waivers and picking up a Ryan Tannehill again. We've got A.J. Dillon here. He's only age 25. There's definitely some teams that could use him as a goal line back. I could see a Buffalo Bills picking him up as a Thunder to James Cook's Lightning. Gerald Everett, tight end from the Chargers. He's been good. He's been good. I think many teams might be interested in his services. So don't sleep on Everett signing to a new team. It was best case scenario with the Chargers, but again, Herbert's had multiple years of injury, and it's just been a little bit inconsistent with just everything there. But Everett's had multiple chances where he's been kind of a top target in the offense due to injuries around him, and I could see him getting into a nice role somewhere. Hunter Henry already signed a couple days ago, re-signing with the Patriots. Noah Fant, I still believe in Noah Fant, very athletic tight end. He could go somewhere and still thrive. Just got to see where that is. Zach Moss, he had his best season this past year, and um, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. I'll see him as a complimentary back. Any of these backup running backs I'm interested in just stashing. You just got to wait a few weeks into the season. It's just such a brutal game that we know these guys will get opportunities. And last guy on the list, Gardner Minshew, had a Pro Bowl season as a backup turned starter when Anthony Richardson went down. He's going to get opportunities. He stepped in for Jalen Hurts while he was on the Eagles and had some good wins there. He's continued to be a professional quarterback. Someone's going to give him a chance. I could, even if it's on the Bengals where they might need a backup, even though I know their backup's contract is not expired, but there are some teams I can imagine that definitely might have a need for him. I'm not rushing out to go get him, but still can see him have a good role somewhere. And I want to move on to the rookies. And the rookies here, we've got, this is just my list, right, of how I'm feeling about some of these guys. I did a mock draft with a lot of these players, and this was after the combine, and even still, it just continues to change with some of the news. I just made a video about Donald Hooker as a sleeper, so I would move him up at this point. Malik Washington was in that video. I would move him ahead of the Frank Gore and these guys down here, probably in this. Maybe at least one round earlier, I would take him. But just to go through, I know. Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. I've got some notes on all of these guys. You can read them here. Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, Brock Bowers, Brian Thomas Jr., JJ McCarthy. We got Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Troy Franklin. Those are my top 12. I have not given up on Troy Franklin. 3.55 yards per route run, over 1,300 yards receiving. For me, I've got a bit of a threshold where these receivers that have hit over 1,300 yards, you see some of the others in the past that have done that, and there's a lot of good production. So I have to keep these guys in mind. Not going to sleep on Troy Franklin just because he had below average combine from some of the drills perspective. I've seen him falling down other folks' rankings. Going into the next round, Lab McConkey. I've got Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks, Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright, Blake Corum, Roman Wilson, Xavier Legette, Ricky Pearsall, Keon Coleman, Braylon Allen, Bo Nix, Michael Penix. Well, I'll actually stop. That's the round 2 to round 3 turn. Really, with these quarterbacks, I just need to see where the draft capital is. I need to know who's QB 4 or 5 before I really commit to the ranking. They could go much higher than this. But I would say one of my tier breaks is probably late second round. I would think these quarterbacks would go into that higher tier. But probably around, pick 22, 24 is where I don't want to say it, but there's a bit of a drop off. Except I love the players after this still. Michael Penix, he's a good quarterback, man. Jalen McMillan, his wide receiver 3, he's had some games where he produced to where he could have been a wide receiver 1. And Jalen Polk, the team, if you ask the teammates of his, they'll say he was the leader of that wide receiver room. And I skipped over Malachi Corley. He didn't test at the combine, but has really good metrics as well. 2.79 yards per route run. Let's keep going through here. Jatavian Sanders, Malik Washington, who I mentioned, is basically one of my favorite players in this class, even though he's 5'8". Let's see where he goes. I hope the NFL agrees. Devontae Walker, he showed that 4.39 speed. He's a really good player. Javon Baker, high yards per route run, 3.03. And then I've got Isaac Guerendo. I actually think it's spelled differently than this, but I won't fix it right now. I think they auto corrected me. He spells it just with one S and I think two A's. Yeah, this guy had a really good combine, tested fast and big and strong with a lot of explosion. He was a backup on his team, but 4.33 speed at 221 pounds, 6 foot tall. It's hard to deny that he could be a riser depending on where the NFL drafts him. We've got Bucky Irving. He was one of the most elusive running backs in this class, and it took a little bit of a tumble due to the NFL Combine, testing a little bit slower, but he had good yards per reception at 8.22, one of the top 19 run grades in the past 10 years. So, don't want to. There's so many players in here. We're going to need that one data point of that NFL draft capital and the team that they're on to help us sort this out a little bit. But had to knock them due to the fact that there's just a lot of other talented backs in this class too, as well. Jermaine Burton, I feel like he's really low on here. 3.12 yards per route run was the wide receiver one for Alabama for the last 2 years. He seems like one of the most slept on players out there, and he had some controversy where they lost a game, and the other opposing team's fan base stormed the field, and some woman ran in his face and started saying whatever, and he just pushed her away. She didn't fall down or anything like that, but it's just not something any man should do, is touch a woman like that. So that's kind of one of the reasons he was getting knocked down a bit. It wasn't anything crazy like we've seen with some of these other players, but still just not a good decision making, and so sometimes that can be a red flag. And in that round, we've got Johnny Wilson, huge player, could be a potential tight end. I think he's a 6'7", and but he's got some good speed, good yards per route run. We got to see where he lands. Audric Estime to start this fourth round, timed very slowly, but he was had a really high rushing grade and yards per reception. So it's like everything he does, he's doing well. But the 40-yard dash was slow, so everyone knocked him. No one's going to be surprised when he gets a roll and is like a goal line back for some team and gets a bunch of touchdowns. Ray Davis, this is a really good running back as well. Really high run grade, good yards per reception. So, these two guys can catch. Have no doubt about that. It's just so many good players in this class. This is a loaded class, and we're hoping that the NFL doesn't crush our dreams here at this point with just knocking everyone into the 7th round or something. Brendan Rice, son of Jerry Rice, 2.75 yards per out run. Another tall receiver, 6'2", 208. Looked good at the Senior Bowl. Hard to pass on all of these players who are sons of former greats. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., you got Brendan Rice, you got Luke McCaffrey, who's brothers of Christian McCaffrey and son of Ed McCaffrey. We've got Frank Gore Jr. So many of these legacy players. Excited to see what happens. Will Shipley here, 40. He's a really good pass catching running back. Really good. So I'm excited to see what he can do. Isaiah Davis, good RAS scorer. Good contributor in the pass blocking game. We've got Jamari Thrash, good separator. We're getting deeper here, but I do like a lot of these players. Theo Johnson, I could see any of these tight ends that I have grouped together rising based on the draft capital. I think they should already be higher than I have them on this list. It just gets tough to break them apart, because I can see Ben Sinnott being ahead of Theo Johnson just because of what he's been able to do on the field. He had some of the highest depth of target Ben Sinnott did. I believe 10 yards down the field is where, on average, where he was getting the ball passed to him. So he seems to be usable in a pass catching game. Cade Stover, he was good for Ohio State. Another one who had a lot of yards over the past 10 years, amongst all these tight ends. Not a big yards after catch guy, but he will catch the ball. He will be a plus in the pass blocking game. Spencer Rattler, this is a quarterback that I think is a sleeper. So we'll see where he ends up going. Luke McCaffrey, who I mentioned, he really good testing. People would love for him to be as good as his brother, and there's no way to know where his ceiling is at this point. But yeah, if he's at receiver, then he's going to be kind of far back here, just since there's so many other guys. Anaya Smith out of Texas A&M, 5'9", but good BMI with the 191 pounds and good yards per out run. Versatile player, could get some opportunity being on special teams. Jacob Cowing, I think he could, he's down this low because he's short as well. I think in the 5'8" or lower range. But he had that 4.38 40-yard dash, so that'll give him some opportunity. Jace McClellan out of Alabama, solid size running back with good receiving ability. And Dylan Lobby, an even better receiving back, one of the best in this class. So these are some guys where if they just get into that right complementary role in a two-man backfield, they could be getting a lot of passes thrown their way, which is good for PPR. And let's keep going. Rasheen Ali, another good running back that can receive the ball, below the threshold that we want to see at 8.3, but still kind of close. Had some good explosion. Kendall Milton had a good yards per reception. Not as fast. We just have to, again, all of these running backs here, you can look at it. Dijon Edwards, which was Kendall Milton's teammate, also was even better yards per reception. Just need to see how this lands. We got Gerard Jordan, who is teammates of Isaac Garindo. He was actually the lead running back, and he has a good PFF run grade, good yards per reception. He's actually high up on a lot of metrics. The total sample size is smaller, but he and his teammate were good when they were on the field, and it might be why he kept Garindo off the field. I think it wasn't until he got injured that Garindo was getting more opportunity. We got Jaheim Bell here, who's small for a tight end. I think he's around 6'1", and he's got really good run after the catch ability. It's just hard at tight end for the NFL to give you that role when you cannot block because of the size. I'm not saying he can't block. It's just we have to see how the NFL team is going to react to that and what role they want to give him. Jared Wiley, though, he has good size. Maybe more of a blocker, so it might not be a fantasy asset. Eric All was injured this past season. He's a tight end. I might not have that listed here, but he was really good. Out of Iowa, which is tight end U, so don't want to sleep on him. AJ Barner from Michigan, he helped that team win that title. They relied on tight ends a lot. He was good. Dallin Holker, he was 11th in receiving, in receptions in the past 10 years, and 13th in yards over the last 10 years. So really good. He was part of my sleeper video that's coming out tomorrow. Amani Bailey, 8 yards per reception at running back. He's pretty good. Got Cody Schrader down here. More of a maybe potential in between the tackles type of back. Dylan Johnson had a good PFF run grade, was on the contender title team with Washington. And he was playing through injury, showed a lot of grit. Next, I got Jordan Whittington, wide receiver from Texas. He was maybe the third or fourth receiver, even behind Jatavius Sanders, but still in some of those playoff games, he was catching everything, doing what he needed to do to contribute to the team. I could see him as a wide receiver 3. 65, Jordan Travis, quarterback. And he had that devastating injury out of Florida State towards the end of that season, but they were undefeated before that, and he looked really good. I heard it is very devastating injury to his knee, multi-ligament tear. We just have to see how he comes back from it. He could have a no production in year one, but in year two maybe he gets an opportunity. Michael Pratt, probably deserves to be a little bit higher, but he's got good timing and anticipation. Joe Milton has probably the strongest arm, but doesn't have the best touch to make sure he gets it to the right guy when he wants to. If he was to just air it out, then hope his receiver gets there. Like if he has if he got paired up with the fastest receiver in the class, then maybe that would be a good match for him. But throwing to tight ends or in the intermediary portions of the field, it might not be as good for him. Frank Gore Jr., really good run grade. I'm excited to see if he can live up to his father's name. Taj Brooks had a high run grade as well, as Kamani Vidal. Just a lot of good sleeper names, and I think these NFL teams might just pick their poison with what fits their offenses. And the last two here, Cornelius Johnson, wide receiver out of Michigan, and Tyron Tracy Jr., who was a part of that sleeper video. He's out of Purdue and look really good. So you have to look out for that video tomorrow to learn a little bit more about him. Gonna cut it here again. Lots gonna keep changing on these draft boards next week, and just a couple days really is NFL free agency. So we'll have to stay on top of what's going on in NFL, and I'll be posting some videos with some updates when some news drops. So thanks for watching, and hope to see you in the next video.